Welcome to Blowing Solutions Wide Open, where we're talking about all things spiritual as well as creating new systems in the area of healthcare, finance, government, education, and new environmental practices. My name is Addie Halkin. If you think that you have ideas or things to share in any of those areas, please feel free to email blowingsolutionswideopen@gmail.com, or you can put the word guest in the comment section of this video, and I'd be happy to get back with you and potentially have you come on here and share with people what you know. If you have ideas for helping humanity or helping the planet in other subjects, I'm super excited about that as well. And if you don't care to be on a podcast, but you'd like to get information through, please leave that in the comments or an email. Also, please like, share, subscribe, and comment if you want to see more content or you have an interest in getting alternative information out to more people. So please help me welcome a very special guest. Her name is Ashley Brothers, and I'm just going to let her introduce herself and tell you what she does. She does a lot of things, and so I think it'd sound best coming from her. So go ahead, Ashley. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Addie. I really, truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
As far as the spiel about like who I am, what I do, I'm pretty much an international life coach, energy medicine practitioner, as well as a shamanic practitioner and teacher for people in 33 countries worldwide. So basically everywhere but Antarctica, you know.
Wow. That's pretty global.
Yes, yes. And I sort of started this journey in 2004 where I was learning, well, actually even before that, where I was learning from different doctors, healers, anthropologists, spiritual leaders, and psychics, you name it. Like the list of different people is long. Since 2004 to learn the most powerful and effective techniques to help people essentially transform their trauma into wisdom, to release the trauma from their bodies to be able to move on with their lives, but also to create a new version of themselves that is not informed by the past.
Right.
So that's basically what I do. And so I do that through a variety of ways, whether that be mediumship, Reiki, shamanism, a blend of things like neuroscience, HeartMath, neuro-linguistic programming, and other things, just to basically help people rewire themselves.
Very cool. What actually, I know you said you were listening to a whole bunch of experts, but what kind of led you in that direction to begin with?
Oh, well, I've always been able to see, hear, feel spirits ever since I was a baby. And I would have premonitions that would prevent accidents and death. And so I've always sort of had the ability, but I wasn't able to call upon it for my own benefit at all for years. And so it wasn't until I actually was working for the government as a medical claims examiner. I was sort of really bored one day after work and decided, there's got to be more to life than this. And so I went for a tarot card reading, and the reading itself was unremarkable. But it was as I was going to pick up my purse, the lady said, "Are you aware that you can speak to the dead? If so, call this number. You may want to develop that gift and skill." So the phone number that I was given was a woman who was able to not only become my first healer, somebody who changed my life so dramatically from one session that I wanted to learn how to do those techniques, but she also became my very first teacher.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it just sort of started off like again as a tarot card reading, and then finally somebody was just like, "Hey, you aren't crazy. This is not like a mental illness that you can hear voices or see things. This is an actual gift, and if you want to develop it, here you go."
Isn't it nice how, like, we're finally moving into a time where we're not all crazy? It's actually like your soul that's talking to you, you know, not something else.
Well, and the funny thing is that that used to be the norm. That used to be, socially acceptable globally. People would, tap into the spirits. In fact, that was a part of the entire like lifestyle where the entire village would get together and pray for food or rain or what have you. I mean, it used to be the
You mean,
thing.
is that kind of like during the, Indian times? Is that or
Well, just basically the original, if you want to call it religion, but the original lifestyle was believing that there was consciousness within anyone and everything that you could tap into for information, power, protection, and healing by going into these altered states, whether that be through singing, drumming, rattling, wearing your costume, your mask. They would go into these different ceremonies and rituals intentionally to connect with the gods, the goddesses, the divine. And so that was the original thing back in the day. And then it suddenly became taboo and evil when the more current religions came on board. But that was the original.
Right. That's a good point. I think that we need to kind of say that more because that might help people like speed up their open-mindedness to this a little
Yeah, I
bit.
mean, as far back as you can think of, I mean, people like whether it's the Egyptians, whether that's the Inca in Peru, the Mayans in Central and South America, Mexico, the North American Native Americans, the Hindus, like all over the board believed in this. And so this is so old. This was the original thing. And it wasn't until like the Council of Nicaea and whatever came in and created the King James version of the Bible that we have today. And so then we had missionaries from different religions going in and trying to convert everybody away from their local spirits, their ancestral spirits, the mountain spirits, the water spirits, and away from all those things and get them to be more assimilated into this new westernized version of spirituality.
Right. That's it. It's so interesting as you're speaking. It's not like I haven't heard that, but it brings up emotion in me for sure. Almost
Yeah.
like slight, sorrow and anger a little bit. So, wow. Yeah. So, one of the things that I have read about you, is that you help people develop their psychic skills and read, anything. What did you say? Any object like you would a tarot card. I love tarot, so I'm curious, what you have to say about that, how that looks.
Yeah, so there people have been doing divination forever. Originally they would use probably animal bones or even human bones in some cases. They would use stone objects. They may even use animal innards. They used to use just about anything that was available to them. We also hear about modern day tarot cards or oracle cards, or back in the day, reading the tea leaves.
Yeah.
Even uh, historically speaking, the crystal ball that people think about when they think of like the readers, like the gypsy type readers, that crystal ball was originally just a piece of quartz. It wasn't this ball shaped thing. The shamans in Mexico especially, but in other countries as well, would tap into the consciousness of the quartz crystal itself and ask it to bring them a vision. And by using different states of perception, and there are four of them, some people would say there's even more, but using these different states of perception, it's like refining the vibration that's coming in, and you're able to get more information about a subject based on the filter of that state of perception. So, for instance, let's say somebody wants to ask a question, and they start to pay attention to what attracts them and repulses them, because both have information.
Yeah.
And so what attracts you could be something that is either a form of enlightenment, or it's a rut you always fall into, because we are often attracted to the familiar even if we hate it.
Ah,
And then what repulses us could either be a genuine warning we need to heed, or a fear we need to face. So when you're using a particular object, unless it has an assigned value, like modern day tarot cards, they will have a positive and negative. And you go and you read the little pamphlet, and they're going to tell you what that card means. The Ace of Wands, the Four of Cups, all these different things, they are assigned a particular value. So when you draw that card, depending on what category it's in, whether that be obstacles, solutions, past, present, or future, it's going to give you information based on the assigned value to it. But if you don't have that, if you don't have that determined meaning for an object, you can just use these different states of perception. So an example would be like somebody wants to know about, um, let's say they're attracted to some guy, and they want to know more information about, this person. And let's say that they're using that, that ability of what attracts me and repulses me. And the first thing they see is this beautiful, like amethyst crystal. So the very baseline state of perception is the physical literal. So it is what it is. It is a piece of amethyst. It's multifaceted, has multiple sides. It's purple and white, whatever. But then you take it to the mental emotional level. And so when you look at this object, how do you feel? And as I'm holding it, I might feel excitement. I might feel joy. I might think it's like super like regal and royal, and it makes me feel amazing. It makes me feel like magical. But then like when I stare at it for a little bit and turn it around, I realize, it's kind of cloudy. I can't see through it. If I look super closely, there's some cracks. And the more I look into it, the more what originally felt like excitement and joy might feel like a little bit of nervousness. So I might start having these thoughts. So the mental emotional might be feelings that arise in the body when you look at that object, but also thoughts that might come through, like, oh my gosh, oh wow, this looks so super amazing, but suddenly I feel kind of nervous. I can't see through it. It's kind of cloudy. It looks good, but maybe I'm, perceiving the wrong thing. I see cracks when I get really super close to it. Like, what's the truth of this thing? And then you can take it to this next level of, like, let's say the mythic or the symbolic. So suddenly this crystal no longer represents a crystal, it represents the guy. Maybe I can't see through him. Maybe it looks good on the surface, but it gives me feelings of either excitement or nervousness. And there's cracks if I get really super close. So maybe things aren't exactly what they seem. And then you can take it to that next level of the energetic, where you might feel it feels heavy. There's weight to it. It might suddenly feel like the longer I hold it, the less easy it becomes. I start to feel restricted or tied down rather than expansive and free. I suddenly feel like it no longer feels good after a while. It looks good on the surface, but over time it becomes something else. So when we're using different states of perception, you can often get more information about something. And then you can also use multiple objects. So let's say you find like, as you're walking along thinking about this person, you also somehow your eyes latch on to this little mini dragon or something. And at first you're like, oh, it's gold, it's shiny. But then you get really close to its face and you're like, oh, it looks super angry. And when I look at that, that makes fear come up. So again, it's that excitement and that nervousness and that fear. And it's like that, oh, it's super shiny and I want to put it on a pedestal. But then if I get too close, it becomes something else. So this is where, when we're using these different states, we get a lot more information rather than just going, I saw an eagle. That was my grandmother, my grandfather, or that's the universe telling me I should have exactly what I want.
Right.
Because of a preconceived value that we've given it.
Right. So are you kind of saying that the way you practice with people is that you help them not only observe like whatever comes when they're thinking about this, whatever it is they're questioning, but then you help them feel into all the layers of that. Is that
Yes.
kind
Yeah. So when I'm teaching them divination or shamanic journeying, I'm basically explaining different things. So, like with shamanic journeying, for instance, I explain the different worlds, what types of beings may exist in those levels or those realms, what type of information they may get. But then I also teach them how to read objects, because a lot of people are trepidatious of talking to their spirit guides, and maybe they may get in their own way. They may be fearful of it, think it's evil to talk to something that isn't directly Jesus or God or Buddha or whatever. And so they may feel more comfortable tapping into their higher self or their own intuition. So when I'm teaching them, I sort of I teach both things, either how to tap into the spiritual realm and get information, or how to tap into the different states of perception and use those to get information, because they always say that the answers come from within.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you interpret them?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people interpret them based on one filter, which is their past experiences or their hopes. A lot of people, especially when it comes to relationships, they go, oh, this person feels familiar. They must be from a past life. But oftentimes they may represent somebody that they're not recognizing on the or deeper, is representing an unresolved wound.
Yeah.
And so they're playing out a cycle of like meeting the emotionally unavailable person, where they have to play this a people pleasing role like they did with their parent.
Mhm.
And so they may not recognize it first. They may think it feels comfortable and familiar and assume it's a spiritual thing rather than an unresolved mental emotional thing. So I
Yeah.
want people to get more information by changing the filter through which they're looking at something,
Right.
rather than just going, this is what I want it to be. Because oftentimes people will spiritualize toxicity and
Yes.
have absolutely no idea what it is that drew this person to them. It's not their soulmate, their twin flame, their past life lover,
Yes.
their whatever it is. It is their unresolved trauma. And it isn't that they have karma with this person necessarily. They might, but oftentimes what it means is they have to learn to hold up a boundary. And they will keep meeting more people like that until they learn to say no, until they learn to stand in their truth without fear of rejection, ridicule, or punishment.
I do love that. I do think that that's something we need more of, is just finding strategies that really kind of help us with discernment
Yeah.
about what the message really is.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot, you're right, there's a lot of people that really spiritualize things that are quite different, than an actual spiritual strong connection. So,
Yeah, because if you only use spirituality, then they can only use language that is about another reality rather than this one.
okay. Yeah.
And so it like for instance, like let's say you're in a toxic relationship and you feel like you can't get out of it. Somebody might say you're cursed, or that you have a soul contract with that person. Maybe it's none of those things. Maybe the curse is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy where you say, I can only be around toxic people, or I only attract a-holes, or whatever it is. You may be in something that's it's a subconscious belief or program, or that somebody embedded into you, your own programming. But it's not some external curse that somebody placed on you. It's something that
Right.
you said to yourself with enough intensity and repetition that you are blind to the actual source. That's something that happened to me when I was 17. I was so frustrated and sad and angry when I left home. I made a declaration that ended up playing out for the next 25 years of my life and almost took my life. And I didn't realize I was the source of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, does that actually lead into, because I know that you have talked about that you have healed something that actually almost killed you. So, and I wanted to ask about that specifically. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So just sort of to give you like the context of the original wording that I had when I was 17, I had left an abusive home. My mother was narcissistic, bipolar, and all sorts of things. And so I went to high school during the day and community college at night to graduate a year early. And when I went there, I was very distraught. And I just made this declaration one day that I would never have love or a family, because I never wanted to treat anyone the way my mother had treated us. And I swore that my mother's legacy of abuse would die with me, and that I would never, and that my greatest gift to humankind would be to never procreate. Now, fast forward about 7 years, I ended up getting these ovarian cysts that required surgical removal. And unbeknownst to me, the doctor left something inside of me.
Oh,
And so I felt this bulge, or this whatever this was, after the surgery. And at that time I had just started my spiritual training, and my teacher said, go look through your house and see what you left yourself unconsciously to see if there's any clues as to what this might be.
Mhm.
And on my altar, I had actually put the figurine of a pregnant woman with a skull. And
Wow.
so inside of me was something that was growing that would have killed me. And so when I finally called my doctor and asked them for a test, they were going to send me away. They said I was just constipated or fat. And I said, I refuse to leave without an ultrasound. So the woman finally reluctantly allowed me to get one, and then immediately had me go get an MRI. And when I talked to the doctor, she called me like at night and said, we don't know how we missed it. I said, missed what? And she's like, well, we won't know until we go in there, but it grew so fast. There's no way it should have been present during the other surgery. And her wording was so strange that I
Yeah.
decided to get medical advice from somebody else, because the information I was getting in my head from the whatever voice I was listening to was that she would take it out and not tell the truth of what she found.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So I was actually working for a chiropractor at the time, and he had done an x-ray on me just as sort of like one of these courtesy things. Like, if you're going to work for the chiropractor, he'll also work on your spine and do adjustments. And he said, Ashley, did you ever have a surgery on your gut? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you see this ribbon? He's like, I think it's inside of you. And so here's the thing. So I had my MRI after that. I had my ultrasound after that. And there are these two grapes fruit sized masses inside of me, but also this ribbon, which I later found out is the radioactive biomarker that says this is a sponge.
Oh,
So they knew what it was, but wouldn't tell me.
wow.
And so fast forward, I go get the surgery 8 months after this sponge is left in my gut. Remove these two grapefruit sized masses, surgically separate all of my organs, lose one of my ovaries, and the pain and the bleeding doesn't stop. So 8 months later, I lost my entire reproductive system, total hysterectomy, what have you. And then I still didn't feel well. And about 8 months later, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath. And I kept going to all these different doctors, and they said my test results were normal. But my guides were saying, you need to go order your records because they're lying to you. And so I found out that I had an inflammatory condition that was brought on by this massive infection in all of my organs that ate through my arteries and my aorta, cutting off the blood supply to my limbs and my brain.
Holy.
And I was refused care by 40 doctors in 3 different states.
Wow.
40. After that, I stopped counting. Again, they all told me my test results were normal, even for my abdomen. And I had 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel. I had paralysis of the left side of my gut. And it's all in the records.
Right.
But to my face, they told me that I was they said that women often have symptoms that have no basis in reality, and I was a typical woman that need to learn to relax, or that pain and shortness of breath are often mental and I needed a psychiatrist. Or one doctor, I actually came back to him, I said, my medical records say this, and he just point blank stared at me and said, you're not dead yet, so it can't be that bad. So the
Oh,
gas, yeah, so the gaslighting and abuse that I went
yeah.
through was severe. And I ended up having seizures every single day, 16 strokes. I lost my memory for 2.5 years. I couldn't do math, I couldn't read, and I didn't know who I was. And so I had to call upon something else
Yeah.
that taught me how to turn off the terminal disease by changing my diet. It was like basically an elimination diet. And then to use different herbs that would kill bacteria and fungus in my body and then put everything in remission. And he also said when I was having seizures or strokes to pack the left side of my body in ice, it stopped them immediately. It slowed down my heart rate. It took my blood pressure down, and it stopped the inflammation. So I was able to turn off what was considered a terminal disease through these different changes. Even though this particular disease is considered rare, it's considered incurable with a 5-year lifespan, and you're supposed to take chemo until you die. I didn't have any of that.
Wow. And who did you work with to get to that was able to help you with this?
So
You said,
part of my spiritual training was to connect with a spirit guide. And
right.
so I connected with an elderly grandfatherly spirit, not my grandfather, but he was just an older Native American spirit that was part of my Lakota training, essentially. I've been trained in Lakota traditions for 12 years, and doing Sundance, doing sweat lodges, vision quests, you name it. And 5 years into my training, which is 5 years into my illness, or 4 years into my illness, I was very desperate. And I said, will there please be a spirit that will help me, not only save my life, but help me work with as many people as I can for as long as I can. I will do anything if you just save my life. And so he would actually breathe for me in my chest. He would walk with me. He told me that I needed to fly to California to find a doctor. And I said, I don't know any doctors in California. And he says, but you know somebody who does. And he flashed the face of a man I had worked with 6 years before. So I called him and I asked him about places in California, and he suggested Stanford. So I book a flight to Stanford Hospital. I get on the plane and I look out the window as the sun is coming up. And I said, will they help me? And these little lakes light up in the distance. And I heard, you will have a partial answer, but they won't be able to help. And I said, then why am I going? He's like, don't worry. They know somebody who can help you. And I said, okay, where do I have to go? And this gigantic lake in the distance lit up like a copper penny. And he said, you will have to fly east. And the people in California know exactly who to go to. So when I flew to California, the doctor says your situation is so complicated. You need a panel of doctors, and I suggest you fly east to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, which is the land of the lakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And they knew within 24 hours what these other people denied me for 3 years.
Wow.
And because the other doctors were also trying to, like, because I was in the middle of a medical lawsuit. And
Right.
so some were trying to say that I was born this way. And the woman that looked at me was actually a child defect specialist. And she said, I would have never made it past the age of 5 with this, because I had ended up losing 90% of the blood to my left arm because of the damage to the artery, and most of it to my legs.
Wow.
So they ended up putting synthetic tubes in my chest that gives me the blood to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain. But I was the one that turned off the condition. So it was this blend of this science and spirituality, listening to this voice that other people said was mental illness.
Right. Wow, that is an incredible story. Um, you are a warrior because I know for me, I have some physical really strange conditions, but I get frustrated with like complicated situations when it becomes like, you know, not just easy.
Yeah.
So I mean, how long did that take all of, I guess, how long did it take for all of that to finally come to a place where you were like, I am good?
Oh, wow. So after all the strokes, I actually had left-sided pain and weakness for a certain period of time, and I had to learn how to neurologically rewire my brain. So from the beginning, November 2005 to when I had my last seizure or stroke, that was about 10 years.
Wow.
But that being said, the condition turned off in, I want to say, less than that. It was probably in 7 years. But it just took this unraveling, this building this relationship with the guide. Oh, the reason why it took part of it took so long is I didn't even meet this guide until 5 years into this illness. And so when he came on board, that's when things started to speed up very rapidly. And now I don't have any more paralysis. I don't have any weakness. The hernias went away by themselves.
Very cool.
The collapsing intestine healed itself. The paralysis is gone. My memory is completely back. I don't have the condition anymore. In fact, I don't have the pain anymore. I don't have seizures. I don't have strokes. I don't have any of it.
That's beautiful. Very inspiring story to be able to tell people.
Oh, thank you. And I think
Yeah.
it's just, again, the original medicine was herbs. It was stuff from the earth. It was spirituality. It was breath work. It was meditation, tapping into the body's own intelligence to heal itself,
Yeah.
rather than these synthetic drugs or whatever that's just basically manage a disease rather than heal it.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Incredible. That's worth a lot alone there, is that you are able to actually reach people in a way that, I mean, because you're a living example of healing something that complex and that life-threatening, you have a lot to offer people. Um, Before we go, I want to ask you, I had another question on here and I have to find it. Hold on, my writing isn't very good. Um, okay, so real quick, how is your work evolving, or are you even working with people around this kind of consciousness shift that we're going through? I know that we're always going through a shift, but obviously it's a little bigger now. So, what kinds of things are you doing with people around this?
Well, part of this is like there's this massive truth frequency coming out, whether we're talking about what's going on in Hollywood and all the elites that are, coming out about the sex trafficking rings and all that stuff, or
Yeah.
whether it's our politics and all the wars, and all the different stuff that's going on. Part of this is to not get controlled by mind control.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'm trying to get people to do is to learn to respond rather than react, to calm their brain wave frequencies out of the high beta ranges. Because if you are confused, sad, scared, angry, whatever, you're easier to manipulate and control.
Yes.
But if you are going into more of these meditative states, whether it's alpha, theta, something to that degree, and you learn to come into this place of neutral or better energy, you can learn to respond rather than react, because they're trying to jerk our chains with these horrible images, these whatever. It's deliberately geared towards, if you're scared enough or you're angry enough, then you will do what we say. And so I want people to be able to learn to discern away from what social media, news media, or whatever, or the higher ups want us to believe to achieve their agendas. So I'm trying to help people, again, come into this neutral or better energy and learn to respond rather than react. And so part of that is to just calm their nervous system, rewire their brain, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Super valuable stuff. Um, you clearly have a lot to say. If you want to continue, we can definitely continue. But before we kind of end this one, let me ask you, I have all your information. I'm going to put it in the description of this video, but do you want to just kind of verbally tell people where they can find you and kind of learn more about you? And because
Yeah.
I know you offer a lot of things. I've already checked it out.
Yeah. So I have my own podcast on Gnostic TV called Soul Deep. If people want to join Gnostic TV, in fact, all they have to do, my channel in particular, is free. So all they
Okay.
have to do is enter in their email address at gnostictv.com. They just enter in their email address. If they put my name into the search bar, they'll be able to find me that way.
Okay.
Also, all of my videos, whether they be interviews like this or my podcast, can be found on my website under the media page.
Okay.
And my website is bonesoftheearth.com. So like BONESOFTHEEARTH.org. So bonesoftheearth.org. They can find
Okay.
me there. And they can also find me on Facebook, either under my name, Ashley Brothers, or Institute of Conscious Evolution.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Very cool. Well, I just appreciate the heck out of you coming on here. I'm really excited about what you have to offer people. I think that it clearly you've been through a lot and it goes really deep. And I find that those are often the best like helpers in the world that have been through a lot. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. Again, if you have more to share, I am happy to do another one of these with you, a
Oh
part
yeah, I'd
two.
love to. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we can do that whenever you want. Thank you so much for coming on here, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. Blessings to
Oh,
everybody. You too.
thank you, Ashley. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.